I am Tad Larkin, the lore master of Manda-LORE, and today I'll be digging through the archives to elaborate on the mysterious and powerful Waru. Waru is a trans-dimensional being of great power, composed of hundreds of golden plate-like scales encasing a cubic blob of flesh which oozes a sticky ichor-like substance. According to the last published journal of Master Historian Arhul Hextraphon following his death, which, I must clarify, is subject to much conjecture amongst galactic historians concerning its validity, Waru hails from a dimension known as Other Space, which is a pocket dimension within the one we currently reside. Sometime around 100,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, or possibly even much earlier, Waru was spawned from the dreaded Uradriel, who was one of the monstrous creatures birthed by Tiltony, who herself was one of the 4 entities encountered by Leia Organa on the planet Bedlam during the Galactic Civil War. To provide some much-needed context, at the dawn of the galaxy's creation, a celestial named Wutsek created 4 powerful entities we call the Bedlam Spirits, to aid in the creation of the galaxy and in the guiding of what would be the firstborn races. Calling themselves the Architects, 3 of those Bedlam spirits fancied themselves as gods and turned to evil, and created the pocket dimension of Elathorian, aka Other Space, and in it birthed horrific leviathans of immense power to aid in the conquest of our dimension, hence giving way to Uradriel and thus Waru. Sometime between 100,000 and 30,000 BBY, note Hextraphon doesn't give hard date references in this particular publication, a series of titanic conflicts known as the Empyrean Wars erupted between the Architects and their spawn and the firstborn races of the galaxy, of which Waru participated alongside his progenitor. With the aid of Wutsek and the 4th Bedlam spirit that refused to join Tiltony, named Horlus, the forces of the Architects were finally defeated in a clash on the core world of Coruscant, and, along with his fellow invaders, Waru retreated back to Other Space before all known portals to the pocket dimension were sealed. It wouldn't be until after the rise of the Galactic Empire some several millennia later that Waru would once again emerge from Other Space to reside in our galaxy once again. At the behest of Emperor Palpatine, who had taken a great interest in some of the aspects of the powers that were said to reside in Other Space, Lord Hethrir, the Imperial Procurator of Justice at the time, and student of Darth Vader, began to research ways into gaining access to Other Space. 3 years after the Battle of Yavin, and with the aid of the Ancient Order of the Canted Circle, of which the Ferrario Male was a member of, Hethrir transformed a former Imperial Correctional Facility named Asylum into a research station, and set it to orbit a dying white dwarf star in the Chrysia system, in the Outer Rim. Chrysia's star, which itself was in dangerous proximity to a black hole, was cooling to the point of near crystallization, and it is there that Hethrir summoned Waru, but whether it was on purpose or by accident, it is unknown. During this first meeting, Waru and Hethrir came to an agreement, whereby Hethrir would harvest Force-sensitive children for the entity to consume, and in exchange, Waru would grant him mastery of the Force, so that he could rival even the Emperor himself. Waru's ultimate goal was to return home, and in order to accomplish this, he had to annihilate the force of this dimension with the anti-force of Other Space within himself, and the quickest way to do this was to consume beings with a high midichlorian count. In 4 ABY, both Emperor Palpatine and Darth Vader were slain during the Battle of Endor, leaving the Galactic Empire without a ruler, and subsequently, numerous Grand Moffs, Admirals, Generals, and other high-ranking personnel sought to carve out their own piece of the Empire for themselves, and thus it collapsed. Foreseeing this, Hethrir began work on solidifying his own power, creating the Empire Reborn movement. Meanwhile, Waru made himself cozy on Chrysia Station, which was eventually abandoned as a research station and opened to the public for shopping, gambling, and vacationing. Inevitably, many became curious of the anomaly that is Waru, and after demonstrating his healing capabilities, he gained a cult following, literally, and beings from all over the Outer Rim would come to Crescia Station with hopes that Waru could aid their health problems, and many would end up joining the cult of Waru. Some he would heal, while others he would consume in order to sustain himself, and he would more often than not pass it off as an accident, or that the individual was far too sick for him to heal, while the grieving family members unknowingly accepted the outcome as an inevitability. In the meantime, Hethrir established his Empire Youth Program, where he abducted Force-sensitive children to be molded and eventually trained as Dark Jedi by Lord Dasan, before his death in 12 ABY. But before that, many trainees were taken to Waru's temple on Crescia to be purified by Waru, which was basically Waru choosing which ones to consume and which ones to spit out. Hethrir would spend many long years looking for one powerful enough in the Force to offer to Waru and fulfill his end of the bargain, and that opportunity would come in 14 ABY, when he abducted the 3 young children of Han and Leia Organa Solo, while on a diplomatic mission to the Outer Rim world of Monto Cordru. Out of the 3 Solo children, Hethrir discerned that Anakin Solo held the most Force potential, and was planning to offer him as a sacrifice to Waru when Luke Skywalker, Han, and Leia intervened. Luke and Han were already at Crescia Station, investigating reports of possible Jedi candidates for Luke's Jedi Praxium, and later Waru himself, when Leia arrived, and together they stopped Anakin from being consumed by Waru. In the process of saving Anakin, Luke was engulfed by the gelatinous Waru, and Han dived in after him, and both narrowly avoided being trapped in the entity forever. Greatly angered by this, Waru decided to just consume Hethrir himself, and with the dark side adept in his grasp, Waru was able to open a rift into other space where he made his return journey home. Waru would be spotted one last time circa 36 ABY, this time within other space itself, when Arhul Hextraphon made his alleged journey into other space through the Adahawk's Hell Hoop wormhole, and Waru was one of his pursuers as he attempted to escape the pocket dimension. Though Waru is a puzzling subject among galactic historians and scientists alike, one cannot deny that he is an interesting, albeit strange, creature, and if he does return to this dimension, hopefully it will be in peace, where we can learn more about him, and the dimension he calls home. However, I don't foresee this as likely. This transmission was commissioned by Dave the Grave. If you have any suggestions for future transmissions, don't be afraid to drop a comment. Special thanks to my patrons Wildcat144, The Grand Pope, Zexend, JTrips1997, David Miller, AJ Can't Think of a Good Pun Right Now, Dave the Grave, Hugo Novotny, Zim the Despot, Matt Patton, and Trav. If you'd like to support this channel, please visit my Patreon to find out how. Link is in the description. In the meantime, keep your comm channels open for future transmissions, and don't forget to subscribe. Tad Larkin, out.